Greetings, I'm John. It's Sunday, December 8th, 2024. I want to talk about the AMD Radeon 8000 series coming out supposedly in January. We're pretty much all but confirmed it's coming out in January. There's CES. I had some thoughts I wanted to share. I'm going to actually try to make this a quick video. I could try. Um, so the rumored specs is that it's going to be a 16 gig card and that they're not going to do high end this generation. And I really find it obnoxious when people say they're seeding the high end and they're never going to come back. That's nonsense. They're just like the 5000 series. They released a 5700 XT, which is a 256-bit memory interface card with 8 gigs of VRAM. So I think there's a few things that would make this launch go a lot better. And let's start with the name. This should be, in my opinion, the 8700 XT for two very specific reasons. First off, calling it an 8800 XT, no. I think anyone who follows video cards even half as much as I would correlate memory interface and to obviously an almost equal extent the memory capacity, but not all the time, as being more one of the very dominant aspects that helps differentiate one tier of graphics card from another. And when I think 900 series, I think 512-bit memory interface. I think 800 series, I think 384-bit memory interface. I think 700 series, and I think 256-bit memory interface. So, I really think with everyone, I mean, don't get wrong, I'm very happy that there's a lot of enthusiasm for the next generation of graphics cards from AMD because they're actually going to be, there's reasons to be excited about them. They're going to be bringing ray tracing to the upper mid-range in pricing, but lower mid-range by graphics memory. So $500 is still upper mid-range, though 16 gigs is lower mid-range for GPU memory. I think that they really should launch this at $500 tops, absolute tops. And there's a few reasons for that. First off, it only has 16 gigs of video memory, which is, I've had my RX 6800 16 gig, and I have run out of VRAM, I wouldn't say on a weekly basis, but often enough, I'd say more than a few times a month. And it's an amazing graphics card. Excuse me. And if you're desperate for a graphics card and you can't shell out more than $400 and you don't want to wait, go out there. You can buy a brand new RX 6800, and it'll do pretty much any game. The only problem is that browsers and other programs will just feed off of that VRAM, and that's a big problem. So that brings me to the second point of why the high Navi 48 should not be called the 8800 XT or XTX, is that the memory chips are finally going to increase in capacity. So a single memory chip right now, if you have a graphics card with a single memory chip, you can max it out at a 32-bit memory interface per chip at 2 gigabytes, not bits. So 8 bits to a byte. So they'll say it's a 16 gigabit chip. Divide 16 by 8, you get 2. We care about bytes, not bits. So the nice thing is that there's going to be 3 gigabyte chips coming out, or have been coming out. And that is going to alleviate the VRAM issues, possibly, depending on how the graphics card manufacturers play things out. So I think the 8700 XTX would be a fantastic way to refresh the 8700 XT by coming out with a 24 gig version, maxing out at between 580 to 620. I think that would be, because here's the thing is AMD, one of the managers, I can't remember offhand, mentioned that they're going for market share. And we've gotten all these videos, again, if you're paying attention to GPU news, that the 5070 is going to have 12 gigs of VRAM. Really? 12 gigs is entry level. 8 gigs is below entry level. I mean, 8 gigs you can play most games, very low, minimal settings with 8 gigs. And 12 gigs, I mean, I'm running out of VRAM with 16 gigs. Why would I buy 12 gigs? So, and there's rumors that the 5080 will come out with 24 gigs of VRAM. But what do you think they're going to charge for that? They're going to charge you like $1,200 absolutely minimal, because and the 5080 is really like basically a 5060 at this point, compared to what the rumored specs and all that stuff. So there's no reason to buy NVIDIA. Why? Because you can upscale better with GLSS. How about not needing to upscale to begin with by having good performance on, entry and mid-range video cards? So, yeah, I think NVIDIA's approach to everything is an absolute joke, and they do not deserve their customers. But so yeah, I really think it'd be fantastic to see an 8700 XTX with 24 gigs of RAM debut some point. I don't know if they'll. I don't know if there are 3 GB chips that are GDDR6. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. I haven't been able to. I haven't come across anything. I've been not doing like a lot of external research, but I think that would be something that would get a lot of people excited, presuming they don't. One other thing I think would be very important is to not overstate the performance. So when you're in business and you're competing, if you can't show performance numbers against your competitor, or in a way that is, if it feels just disingenuous, don't do it. And it's okay to compare performance of what you have against yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Because I mean, yeah, there's people who buy NVIDIA blindly. They're never going to be interested in AMD until sounds like everyone around them's like, "Why are you buying a 12 gig video card for $800? What is wrong with you?" Right? But if we get like a 24 gig, 16, $1,600 8700 XTX, even if it's May, June, July of next year, that would only reinforce the excitement. And then, well, 192-bit memory interface, so that would be 75% of the VRAM. So we take 12, multiply that. What are we looking at? Like 18 gigabyte video cards for like maybe $400 from AMD. So what would that be? Like a 8600 XTX? So I really think the jacking the prices up at launch, that needs to stop with AMD. They need to stop that. If they want market share, they have to bring the prices down. There's just no way around that. Yes, the ray tracing performance increase is going to help substantially. It's going to, I don't know if it's going to mute the whole NVIDIA indoctrination that's taken over a lot of the market's mind share, but it'll definitely it'll be a good black eye in NVIDIA's face, and I think most gamers would appreciate that, even those who just blindly buy it and then they find out that, oh, the video card they just bought for $600 to $800 is running out of VRAM. And that's what they're going to have for the next 2 or 3 years. So, yeah, I really think AMD has the chance to take a lot of market share. I think a market segment that most people are ignoring, though, is the entry level. And when the RX 6000 series came out, and they released a 6500 XT. Now they eventually released an 8 gig 6500 XT. It should have just been an 8 gig 6500 XT. And I can't remember if it's the one with the 4X or 8X PCI Express slot. Electrical, it has a 16X physical, but an 8X electrical. And yeah, there should be no 4 gig video cards. There's no point. That's basically a monitor adapter is all. Might as well USB plug-in for a monitor port. I don't know if they're going to release an 8500 series or what other people would refer to 8600. But I definitely think that the $300 and $200 to $300 range, and I really don't think 8 gig card should cost more than $200. Period. There's no reason for it. And 12 gig cards definitely should not cost more than $300. There's just no excuse. I was just watching Tom from Moore's Law is Dead here on YouTube talking about how he got a Radeon 7 with 16 gigs of RAM, VRAM, in 2019. And it's 5, almost 6 years later now. So we definitely need to see more VRAM. I think it would be an interesting thing, if they really wanted to spice things up, is maybe not for the 8000 generation, but maybe for the 9000 generation, have 2 tiers that are intentionally built with a 256-bit memory interface, and kind of widen that. So that way you can get a video card with decent memory capacity, but not, the really high-end performance, but enough that like you're people who can't shell out $400 or $500 can still get something that's really, really solid. But I think if AMD wants to take market share, they're going to have to sacrifice margins. They're going to have to just go for the throat right out the gate. There's just no way around that. And if they name it correctly, instead of just saying, oh, our number's bigger, so it's better. No, bigger number, not better, because if we look at, yes, anyone who pays attention, they're going to see out of the 5080, oh boy, yes, it performs very well, but it's like, would you buy a 9800X3D and put 4 gigabytes of system memory in it? No. So, I think that naming the Navi 48 chip, which is the new high-end chip, the 8700 XT, and then when they refresh, presuming they refresh, the XTX. I think presuming the XTX for like a refresh might be but a noticeable refresh, not like, I know a lot of people were disappointed when they came out with the 7600 XT, and yeah, they clocked it higher and they gave it more VRAM, but you didn't get any more shaders, or what NVIDIA people call CUDA cores. Those are shaders, people. And basically, I think the XTX moniker, I believe the term is, should be reserved for not just VRAM capacity, but there should be a little something extra that's tacked on. So besides just an overclock and VRAM, but that would imply that they would have to increase the shader count or the CUs or the other specifications, and then not release them. But it looks, if my interpretation of the market is correct, that the yields are pretty good. I mean, we've been looking at 5 nanometer cards that, 5 nanometer. You gotta remember, all this is TSMC, and Apple's basically paying TSMC to continue shrinking the transistors, silicon transistors. So by the time everyone else gets those nodes, they should be pretty well refined. I'm mildly curious what the defect rate is. But anyway, yeah, I really think if they debuted the Navi 48 as an 8700 XT, $500 max, or even lower. Even if it's like $20, like 470, 480, and just straight for the throat out the gate, and then a few months later come out with the 8700 XTX with 24 gigs, even if it's still GDDR6, but having that extra VRAM and then showing, I think that's a big selling point that they could make, is showing what you can do with that extra VRAM would probably be a really good sales point. And a lot of people, I've never seen anyone mention that browsers use VRAM. And right now, if I look at my VRAM usage, I've got 1.4 gigs of VRAM used. When I was, come on camera, when I was redesigning johnbelke.com with the new, there's an animated welcome website introduction, because people are all about the looks, but they don't comprehend substance. And so I got the substance, but I had to work on the aesthetics, fine. And I had 3 browsers open, and I was using 10 gigabytes of VRAM, just browsers. And you can open up the Windows Task Manager. I don't know about Linux and Mac. I don't use my Mac very often because taskbar is always in the way anyway. And you can't customize it proper. You just go to GPU, presuming you have a dedicated GPU. I'm on Windows 10, 64-bit and all that. So there's a lot of good ways they can sell the cards. I definitely think that they should show some emphasis on the extra things that you could do with 16 gigs if they're just going to debut with that. And then have, presuming that they're smart enough, then they do an 8700 XTX with 24 gigs. And I don't know what it would take to introduce, because I'm pretty sure everyone's talking about NVIDIA using GDDR7. So I don't know if there's 3 gigabyte chips for GDDR6, since the industry is obviously going to shift to GDDR7. So I'm curious about how much work it would take to make a refresh and go from GDDR6 to GDDR7, if that's what it takes to get those 3 gigabyte chips. But if they do that, I think that they could keep the momentum going, because if they want to build market share, they've got to absolutely get people excited. And that's what the sales part. The back end stuff. The reason why there's 2 reasons why NVIDIA is so dominant with GPUs is, one, Intel's been kicking AMD on the ground for decades. And AMD's had, its share of successes, but Intel is, has been made benign now. They're going to need some help. But NVIDIA took advantage of AMD being on the ground, being kicked by Intel, and they got into the world of software and got everyone trained to use CUDA stuff. And so that's why it appears why it's so much better. So supposedly, yes, it does run better, because people just blindly kept buying NVIDIA. So that's another video I guess I could make. But anyway, what do you guys think? Should they try to just jack up the name and call it an 8800 XT? Should they stay in line with, because I think that's an issue that more than a few people have noticed, the AMD jumping around with the Radeon branding and the naming the cards. And I think that they should they should find something and stick with it. A 700 series should be 256. 800 series should be 384. 900 series should be 512-bit memory interface. That's my opinion. And I think it would be very desirable to have 2 tiers where there's 256-bit memory interface. And you know, but we'll see what they end up doing, and hopefully, if they do what they need to do to get that market share, they realize that they can't keep pushing for margins even on early launch. They've got to be honest about the marketing, find ways to be honest about the marketing, not cherry pick stuff, but you know. So we'll see. Hopefully, it'll be a fantastic launch. What everyone's presuming is going to be January at the CES, and yeah, maybe make some more videos. Thanks for watching.